Last season showed what Emmanuel Quickley could do as a starting point guard, and after a fat 5-year deal in the offseason, I think every Raptor fan wanted to see what he could do in that role over an entire season. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened this year, with IQ sidelined for much of the year with varying injuries. However, there has been one silver lining to IQ's injured year, and that's the extended view the Raptors have gone out of their backup point guards Jamal, Shead, and until recently, Davion Mitchell. But I want to focus on Jamal Shead. Clearly, the Raptors liked what they saw from him over his rookie season, and I think they liked it so much that they decided to cut the Davion Mitchell experience short and have committed to Shead as their full-time backup point guard now and heading into the future. Looking at Shead's college career, he wasn't really known for his scoring or as an offensive-minded point guard, and that really held true through the first 20 games in the league. His outside shot was just completely non-existent, and despite having pretty good a first step and the speed to blow by people, he just looked too small to finish anything inside against NBA caliber defenders. It really did seem like Shead had a long way to go before he would be able to score at an NBA level, but after getting more reps over the course of the season and some time in the G League, Shead has really taken a leap with his scoring package and I think looks way ahead of schedule. First, the most important thing for any undersized guard to be good at is shooting the 3-ball. And when looking at Shead's shot mechanics, they're pretty good and consistent. I do think the footwork could be improved just a little bit, getting his feet more squared with his shoulders. He tends to have one just slightly far back, but it works for him and it's been working all season. And honestly, after watching all of his 3-point attempts this year, it's really weird to me that he shot so poorly in college. I haven't seen his college shooting mixtape or anything like that, but his mechanics are good. He's very consistent, doesn't swing too far forward, doesn't jump too high, and has a pretty quick shot motion. With that in mind, for this season, Shead is shooting 35% on 113 attempts from deep, which is much better than any single season he had in college. And over the last 22 games, he is shooting 38% on about 57 attempts. Having seen a bit of Shead play in college, I think the main difference between his shooting numbers this season and last year just really comes down to shot selection. We saw this with RJ Barrett last year after he came over to the Raptors and really just started taking only open catch and shoot threes, especially from the wings. And that's what Shead has done pretty much in his career in the NBA. Over 70% of his outside shots this season have been off the catch, and he's knocking them down an elite 39%. In comparison, his pull-up shooting is all the way down below 22%. I don't really think Shead needs to have a pull-up game or have a pull-up 3 be part of his arsenal to be an effective backup point guard. Of course, it would be nice if he could hit that shot, but I don't think he needs to focus on it right away. The fact that he's already a weapon off the catch is huge and shows he has a lot of area to grow as a shooter. And he's not just a corner shooter, he can knock down threes from all spots along the court, including above the break and the wing. Moving inside the arc, besides his improved outside shooting, Shead has shown a real knack for scoring inside the arc despite his size and limited verticality. First, the dude is just quick. If he can get his defender caught up on a screen and gets a step ahead of them, they're really not catching him unless they just have a ton of size on them or they're another freak athlete. That speed also helps him draw multiple defenders when he does drive because he does often beat his man. Help needs to come. Being a 4-year college veteran, Shead knows how to use the screen and get around his defender or get his defender on his hip. And with his strength, once he gets a guy there, it's pretty hard for them to get loose, and he does a good job of keeping them there. From there, he is a pretty patient player, working his way slowly inside using his handle before being able to get to a floater or a nice little push shot. While he still doesn't finish the best, he has a decent floater that has improved over this season, and he isn't afraid of contact, which is huge for small undersized players. He also has kind of added that Bruce Brown stop and pop floater or push shot to his game once he gets 2 feet into the paint and he elevates off both of them, which has helped his finish around the big because he just has more control, he's more planted, and he's not off balance, which gives him more control over the touch. I don't really think he's ever going to be an elite side finisher just because of his physical tools. However, with his speed, strength, and decent floater, he's already solid, and I do think there is some room to grow. Maybe get into the foul line a couple more times, or just working on that floater and push up before it becomes even more automatic. Shead is already shooting 48% on twos, and of course the season's not over, but just for comparison, the highest Fred VanVleet ever shot from 2-point percentage with the Raptors was just 45.5%. So he's already doing better than a guy like Fred, who is a pretty decent inside scorer considering his physical tools. Being a 4-year college veteran, since day one, Shead has brought a real steadiness when the ball is in his hands. He's a real PG who knows how to run an offense, get guys the ball when they're open, and feed his bigs out of the pick and roll. And the stats back this up. He was one of the best rookies when it comes to assist to turnover ratio with a 2.38, and he's one of the better players in the league when it comes to just not turning the ball over. However, I do still think there is some room for him to improve as a point guard. I do think he needs to be just a little bit quicker with his decision making. He does hold the ball a little too long, and sometimes he chooses to go for those home run plays instead of just making the simple pass to an open man. But despite that tendency, he doesn't really turn it over, so he clearly does see things that like I'm not and other players aren't seeing. So I don't think he needs to kind of completely just turn into like a system point guard who just makes the simple passes, because he definitely has good vision. But his decision making does need to improve a little bit, where he just needs to get off the ball quicker and let someone else have a turn, because if he doesn't have an advantage, he does tend to hold it sometimes. Like I said earlier, with that speed, it does also help open up his playmaking, because he can draw 2 defenders, or he can just get by his guy, which then leaves them scrambling, and he has the vision and the wherewithal to take advantage of that type of chaos. He's also just a pretty good dump-off passer when it comes to finding his bigs on the roll, or finding a big in the dunker spot off of one of his drives. Raptor fans and the organization just seems to love their tiny, scrappy two-way guard, and Shead is just the next one in that long list. Shead competes on every single possession on the defensive side, pressuring the ball aggressively and constantly making sure he's appropriately positioned off the ball. He knows he needs to be a plus on that end if he wants to see that court, and you can really see that in how he plays. And that mentality is just something that you can't really develop in a player. You either have it or don't, and Shead really brings that energy every single night. Despite playing such an aggressive, full-force defensive style and being a rookie, he really doesn't have that much foul trouble, or only averaging 1.9, and is really under control defensively most of the time. He's not just giving energy for the sake of it, unlike some guys, cough cough, Pat Beverly. I don't think he's ever going to be like an old league defender just because of his size, and he's never going to play that much, but he is a menace for other guards to deal with, and with some added strength and just slightly better positioning when it comes to off the ball or around screens, I do think he can be pretty decent when it comes to switches and hold his own against some 2s and maybe even some 3s. Lastly, the Raptors have been in desperate need of a backup point guard ever since Fred VanVleet became a full-time starter back in, 2020, 2019. And while Davion Mitchell might be the better point guard today, Shead is 4 years younger, is under contract for a lot younger, is already a better offensive player, and has more potential to grow on both ends of the court. I really do think the shooting seems real. I also trust how the Raptors development staff seems to be able to get the best out of their players when it comes to their shot, minus Scotty Barnes, who I think is just taking bad shots, and that's what's really killing his percentage. He has a true knack for playmaking and is a legit point guard, unlike some other guys who are his size, who are more so undersized 2 guards with lackluster passing, like a Malachi Flynn. I don't think Shead will ever be a starter, but for the 45th pick, being a good backup is a steal, and I already think he's there and he has room to grow.